I've got some exciting news. So maybe you're a worship leader who has been considering using Ableton Live to run a click, tracks, and automate lighting and lyrics in your worship service, but you don't have $500 to spend on Ableton Live Standard or even more money on Ableton Live Suite. Well, in this video, I'm gonna show you how you can get going with Ableton Live Intro despite its limitations and still use it for basically everything you need Ableton Live to accomplish in a worship ministry setting. I'll give you an in-depth look at how I set up some Ableton Live song sessions and worship set lists in Ableton Live Intro, not Standard. And I think you're gonna be surprised that even with this $100 version of Ableton Live, you can still accomplish all of the important things like running your click, tracks, and automating lyrics and lighting. So keep watching this video and get ready to learn how to implement Ableton Live Intro at your church. My name is Jake Goswell, churchfront.com, an online resource for innovative and creative church leaders. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you can receive all of our latest content to help you grow yourself and grow your church. Make sure you check out the show notes below this video for some links to some free and helpful resources for your ministry, as well as some links to other related videos. Sorry, as I was editing this video, I realized I forgot to mention something really important, that if you have never downloaded Ableton Live before or installed it on your computer, you can go to ableton.com and you can download a 30-day free trial of the Suite version, which is their biggest and best version of the software. You can have full functionality of the software for 30 days. So first, download the software that way and learn how to use it before you even have to buy it. But when you get past the 30 days and you have to make a decision about purchasing, then you need to think about these things of whether or not you can just, get Ableton Live, the intro version, or if you can afford the standard version. But the point of this video is for me to show you that you can use just the intro version to accomplish a lot of what you'll need to do as a worship leader with Ableton Live. So what I'm gonna do in the rest of this video is I'm gonna hop behind my computer and I'm gonna show you how I overcome the primary limitations of Ableton Live Intro. And there are two limitations about Ableton Live Intro that most affect the way I use Ableton Live, but you'll see how you can easily overcome those limitations with a few tricks that I'm about to show you. So the first limitation is track count. You can only have 16 tracks in Ableton Live Intro. But I'm gonna show you how to overcome that. And then the other limitation is that you just can't use the complex warp modes of Ableton Live. And the complex warp modes are basically the best warp modes Ableton Live has for transposing or altering the tempo of your songs without making the audio sound funky. But you can still use warp modes in Ableton Live Intro, and I'll show you which is the right one to use that will sound the best. So I'm gonna go ahead and hop behind my computer. So here I have an Ableton Live project file for Glorious Day, and you'll notice I have quite a few tracks for just this one song. I have the full selection here of backing track stems because I purchased them from loopcommunity.com, and then I built up my song session here in Ableton Live, and I believe there's 19 tracks in the session, and this wouldn't even be able to be open within Ableton Live Intro. Right now I'm in Ableton Live Standard. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to show you, we're going to create a new project in Ableton Live Intro, and we're just going to pull in the audio stems here of these backing tracks, and then we're going to mix these down and export them as one track. So then that's going to cut down on all these extra tracks here, and that's going to allow us to use Ableton Live Intro to build our individual Ableton song sessions as well as our set list for our weekly worship sets. So I'm going to exit out of Ableton Live, and then I'm going to go ahead and open the intro version of Ableton Live. This has the 16 track count limit, and it has only the basic warp modes. Those are the two downsides of this, but we can still make it work. So I'm going to show you the first step of making this work is you need to consolidate your backing track stems into one track. So I'm going to go to Glorious Day, and then I'm going to find the raw audio files for Glorious Day. I have them here. This is what I downloaded from loopcommunity.com from the master tracks. I'm going to drop those in my timeline. And then I'm going to eliminate tracks that I definitely know I don't need. So I can see here, I'm looking at the names of the tracks. I'm going to eliminate the drums. I don't need a click. I don't want the cues in here either. I can pull up the cues track later when I actually build out the session, but this is just for mixing down the track. So right now I have all the instruments in here, and then let's say I want to mix the levels a little bit, so I'll play the song. Actually, I definitely don't need acoustic. Get rid of that because I'll play acoustic guitar. Say like I don't want that much of electric guitar too. I'm just going to turn that down. I can mix this however I want. Turn down that pad. Maybe I'll turn it up. Maybe I want to turn down the piano a little bit. So I'll go through and adjust all these tracks accordingly to make the mix that I want. Then what I can do after that is I will just select all these tracks, from the beginning to the end points here, and then I'm just going to export the audio. And I'm going to just export this as one wave file. So I'm going to press export here. I'll just call this Glorious Day backing track mix. And then I'll just find Glorious Day here. Press save, and now that's going to take a few moments to export all these tracks into one audio file. And now I want to show you the project that I built that works for Ableton Live Intro. So now you're looking at the Glorious Day intro version Ableton Live session that I have. And look at how the track count is drastically reduced because I consolidated all these tracks down to one audio file right here. Another thing I wanted to note is that you'll notice I don't have a click track over here. That is because I always just use Ableton Live's built-in metronome when I'm building my individual song sessions as well as my Ableton Live setlist. I used to use audio click as well, but now I really just like the sound of Ableton Live's click. And they've made it even better in Ableton Live 10. You can customize the sound a bit more, and you can make the rhythm different and all that stuff. So it's really powerful, and it saves on needing to use another track for your click. So I have like my necessary tracks that I have for every project, my markers, tempo, guide, MP3, and then my lyrics cues track, so I don't have to make new Pro Presenter cues every week. And then I have the backing tracks all mixed down to one audio track right here. So one of the downsides of Ableton Live Intro is that you don't get the advanced warp modes, and warp modes are all about being able to transpose your songs on the fly or just tempo. And so when we go down here to the warp mode section, I'm going to enable warp for the audio file that we have here. And then under warp modes, we only have beats, tones, texture, repitch. And in Ableton Live Standard, you would have Complex and Complex Pro as other selections. And they're able to alter, the sounds of the audio file without making it start to sound funky. So that's another advantage of why you would want to go the Ableton Live Standard, but not a huge deal. You can select tones under here. So don't go with beats, go with tones. That's better for adjusting the pitch of like your vocals or instruments or instruments that just aren't very percussive. Beats is more for percussive instruments. So make sure this is on tones, and then let's just test this out. So I went up a whole step. Let's if I go up a lot. So it doesn't sound that bad using the tones warp mode down here, but it's just definitely not as good as complex mode, which you can get in standard version. But I definitely wouldn't let this keep you from getting Ableton Live Intro if that is all you can afford. So that was a look at an individual song session and how we can really consolidate the track count, really reduce the number of tracks that we have to be able to use Ableton Live Intro and keep things underneath 16 tracks. But now I want to bring you over to a full set list of worship songs in arrangement view, and how I'll show you how by consolidating these tracks you can still stay underneath that 16 track count, and then you can still use the full power and capability of Ableton Live for worship leading. All right, now I have my complete worship set list project pulled up in Ableton Live Intro. This is not standard. This is the intro version. You can see right here, this is the active application. And you'll notice that our track count is relatively low. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 tracks. So I have room for even 3 more tracks if I wanted to. But this is how I set up my worship set list in arrangement view. In Ableton Live, when I build my set list, I use the same MIDI and audio tracks for my markers, tempo, guide, MP3, Pro Presenter, and lighting, and any other MIDI cues, even pads I have a track for. Those tracks are consistent for all songs, but then I give each song its own track for the backing tracks. And the reason I do this is it allows me to do some like nice crossfading and have some nice seamless transitions in between songs. So it kind of has some flexibility there. And the cool thing about Ableton Live Intro is that, like I just showed you, when you consolidate all your backing tracks down to one single audio file, and sure, you don't have the flexibility when you're in the set list to, like, you know, adjust the mix of Reckless Love or Tremble or whatever. Within this mix, you'd have to go back to the individual project and that you mixed it in and remix it and re-export it and put it back in here. But for the most part, if you can just put some thought into prepping your set list and knowing what the mix should sound like, you really shouldn't have any problems with that. So I have these backing track files for each of the songs, and they each get their own audio track. I can adjust each of these tracks however I'd like if I need to adjust volume. But again, I just really like the crossfading feature, and that's one of the advantages of arrangement view in Ableton Live. And then I also have my Pro Presenter cues up here for each song. I have a couple lighting cues in here as well. So right now, I just want to show you how you can actually also automate production elements like Pro Presenter, lighting. You could even do Proclaim presentation software as well. In this case, I'm going to show you how I automate Pro Presenter and then also my lighting software, my DMX 3.0. So I have another computer running right now. I'll show you the screen to that, and that has Glorious Day in Pro Presenter pulled up, and I have Glorious Day here in this Ableton Live set. And watch what happens as I play the song. 4. So obviously slide 1 is queued up already, and then it's going to clear off the slide, and then it's going to bring up the right slides at the right time. And if I wanted to, I can pull up my Pro Presenter project here, and I can add in some different images as well for the backgrounds. So say I wanted to like change image backgrounds on the fly and perfectly timed changes to those. See how the background just changed? So that's how Pro Presenter works, and then I even have a couple lighting cues in here too. So I'm going to pull up my lighting software, runs on the same computer as our Pro Presenter software, and then just look at the little lighting scene diagram on the bottom right of that window. So as I play the song, it's going to pull up the right lighting scene. So we have this white-purple scene, and then we have this blue-amber scene, and then we have a white-red scene. So even though I'm using Ableton Live Intro, I can still fully automate my lighting software and Pro Presenter because all the same MIDI functionality works. It works just as well in Intro. One of the problems is that I can use this Pro Presenter template that I've created, but I couldn't open up this document that contains all these template cues. And usually you don't have to. If you ever have to customize it, I've really kind of customize my Pro Presenter templates once in a while, but because I have over a certain amount of scenes that is above the limit of Ableton Intro, I can't open this project, but I can still use the cues because I'm just dragging in these MIDI clips into my timeline. So I just wanted to be clear that you can still even automate lyrics and lighting using Ableton Live Intro. I hope you enjoyed this video. I love hopping behind my computer and give you some screen share tutorials with Ableton Live, and I just hope now you see that you don't need to spend $500 on Ableton Live for the standard version to get going with it. You can use the intro version, consolidate those tracks, and you can use the intro version to build individual song sessions and worship set lists in Ableton Live, and as you saw, you're able to automate lyrics and lighting as well. And if you're watching this video, you need to check out my free training training, Lead Worship with Ableton. It's a 4-part video training to help you get started with implementing Ableton Live at your church. So click the link below in this video, complete the form, I'll send you access to that training. If you found this video helpful, please hit the thumbs up button, share this video with your other friends in ministry, and don't forget to subscribe to the Churchfront channel so you can continue to receive all of our latest content to help you grow yourself and grow your church.